Hi, how are you? So my name is Courtney and I passed the BTLPT, I guess it was a couple of years ago, and I've been tutoring for quite a while to help people pass the BTLPT. Before the BTLPT, I passed the test before that, the TOPT, um, passed the LOTE Spanish also. Um, so very familiar with these exams and helped a lot of people. In fact, I just heard from two people today that passed their test using my course in tutoring. So it's very effective. But tonight I was thinking about what to cover, and there's a lot we could do, but I think the best use of our time is to go over the oral proficiency because everybody I work with, they already speak Spanish and they speak it well, but they still don't do well on the speaking section, right? And that's because they're not just grading your Spanish, they're grading, did you hit the objective? Did you use the correct register, the right level of formality? Did you use cognitive academic Spanish, or did you use everyday informal, what they call BICS, basic interpersonal communicative skills, which is what everybody has, right? But we don't all have calc, and that's what we have to work on, and that's what I work on in my Tuesday night groups. We meet at 7:30 for a whole hour, so tonight will be about 20-25 minutes, and we'll get a lot accomplished. But as you can imagine, we do a lot more in the 1 hour, and people also have access to my course where they practice everything: reading, writing, listening, speaking. I consistently hear from people, well, I'm really good at reading, I don't need to practice reading. But to me, that's like saying, I'm going to make a cake and I don't like eggs, so I'm not going to put the egg in there, right? It's not going to work. And why does it not work? Because maybe you're good at reading and you're going to get 80% of them right on reading, right? Which is a good score. But maybe you're going to get 60% on speaking because they grade so hard. So we want to get as much as we can in every area to boost our weak areas. So we want to work on everything, not just the parts that we did worse on or that we're most nervous about. Work on everything, because this is a unique test in the sense that it's different than the core subjects. You probably remember the core subjects where you have to get a 240 on each subject area, right? So on math, science, social studies, language arts, fine arts, you have to have a 240 on each area. But this test, even though there's 4 parts to it, reading, writing, listening, speaking, if we do real well in one area, it can boost us in the areas we don't do as well on. So that's why I say we want to practice everything. And when people don't do that, when they don't do my whole course, I notice that they usually don't pass or they barely pass, right? And we don't want that to happen because barely passing makes me nervous. All right, so I want to show you some data before we get started on the actual tutoring, because sometimes people tell me, Spanish is my first language. I don't need to study for a Spanish test. And they take it, and a lot of times they don't pass, right? Because you have to know how to do it for the test, not just know Spanish. So let's look at this. If you just Google EPP passing rates 2023, you don't have to put the 2023, but for some reason it comes up on top when I do that. And then click on the top link. This is the data from the state. You can see this is Texas Educator Certification Exam Program pass rate. And this is the data from people that took the test the first time. It tells us that up here. Um, First attempt. So this doesn't account people that take it a second or third or fourth or fifth time. You can see a long time ago in 2019 to 2020, the passing rate was 71%, which is pretty good. And then it dropped down to 62%. Then it dropped down to 53%. And now it's back up a little bit at 55% and holding steady. So that means 45% of the people that take it the first time don't pass. And I can tell you that most of those people speak Spanish as a first language because almost everybody that contacts me for the BTLPT, Spanish is their first language. It's not like that for the LOT, but for some reason for the BTLPT, I barely ever have second language learners. And they're still struggling to pass this test. So I think it's mostly first language people that are struggling with this test. So that's why we've really got to practice, even if we think we're really good. Now, let me show you another thing that you might already know about. If you Google Texas NES-INC manual, this is the free website where you go to register for your test, right? And they also have preparation guides But really, I think of it as just a starting point because it's not really enough for most people to pass the test. You still need a course or a guide or something. Click on BTLPT Spanish, and then you can see the overview and exam framework, and you can do the practice. And these are super similar to what's on the real test, like super, super similar. And so is this $10 test. So it's very important to do this before your test. So let's look at the overview and exam framework. You can see listening comprehension is 21%, reading comprehension is 26%, oral expression that we're going to practice tonight, 29%, and written expression, 24%. There are 5 parts to oral expression, right? There's 5 tasks, and I'll show you which 5 there are. And we'll practice one tonight. In my Tuesday night group at 7:30, we practice all 5, right? But this is just a quick version because I have some more tutoring tonight to get ready for. So there's a simulated conversation. I think that's the easiest one because you only have to talk for 20 seconds each time it's your turn to talk. So it's pretty easy to talk for 20 seconds 5 times, just like you're having a conversation. The question and answer is a little bit harder. You get 1 minute to prepare. You hear a question, you get 1 minute to prepare. You hear the question again, and then you have to talk for 1 whole minute. And that's hard, right? So you do that twice with 2 different questions based on the same scenario. Then you have the oral presentation. And the oral presentation is harder because you're presented with something and you have 2 minutes to prepare and then you have 2 minutes to speak. And it's really hard to talk for 2 minutes about something that you've only had 2 minutes to think about. And then support a situation or opinion, that one's also 2 minutes to prepare and 2 minutes to think, right? So I always think about what's the best way for us to get some value tonight. I want to show you something that you can really benefit from. So the simulated conversation, pretty easy. So I don't see any reason to pick that. I do it in my group tutoring on Tuesday nights because we do everything. But the oral presentation and support a situation, those are really challenging. So I like to do the question and answer where I feel like you can build some confidence and make some progress without being as intimidated. And I really recommend that somebody be willing to do it tonight. If nobody will do it, I'll do it. So you'll get an example. But it's always good if one of you guys will do it. And then we see how to do this. So this is my course in tutoring. You can see it's got the Zoom link for our Tuesday night group at 7:30. You can see what we're covering each week. Tonight we're doing oral expression for a whole hour. And then I have the recordings from all of the previous 8 sessions, so 2 months of tutoring and extra files, and then lots of listening practice that's set up like the test. You just have to time yourself, and I tell you how to time yourself. Lots of reading practice. For speaking, I explain what to do, and then you upload your own response because not everybody will practice in tutoring. For one thing, not everybody wants to practice in front of other people. And another thing is, in an hour, not everybody would have time to have a turn for all 5 tasks. So everybody uploads their own responses and I give them feedback. And then on the writing, I first give you an example of how to do it and teach you where to put accent marks because most people don't know where accent marks go. So I teach that. And then you upload your own responses and I give you feedback on how to improve. So that's what the lady that just found out that she passed, she sent me a nice text saying that really helped her so much was the feedback she got from me. So that being said, let's look at these extra files I have here. And you can see this is what we'll be doing tonight in my group tutoring. We'll be doing oral expression 2, and we'll do the question and answer, right? So for this assignment, these are the instructions, just like the state manual tells you. For this assignment, you will be asked 2 questions related to information provided. The first screen will appear and you will see instructions for the assignment and have 15 seconds to review the scenario presented on screen. When the 15 seconds of review time is complete, the exam will automatically advance to the first question screen. The audio presentation of the question will automatically begin. You will not be able to pause, stop, or replay any portion of the assignment. For each question, you will hear the question followed by 60 seconds of silence. Use this period of silence to prepare your response to the question. When the preparation time is complete, the audio presentation of the question will then be repeated, and you will hear a tone when it is time to begin speaking. You will have 60 seconds to complete your oral response. You should respond as fully and appropriately as possible. So a lot of people turn in their responses to me and they only talk for 30 seconds. And I don't accept those because it says to respond fully and appropriately. And if they're giving you 60 seconds and you're using 30, you're not doing it fully and appropriately, right? When the response time for the first question has ended, you will automatically be taken to the next question. So before we do this, let's look at the rubric and see what are we supposed to do to get a perfect score. So in this free manual is the rubric. You have to scroll down a lot. That's for the simulated conversation. Here's for the question and answer and oral presentation, and also support and opinion. I'm only going to look at the 3 because we want a perfect score. And some people ask me, why is it a 3? And on my test, it shows out of 12 points. 2 people grade it, so that would make it 6 points, and then they do a multiplier, right? So it's a little bit funny the way they grade it. So to get a full credit, you have to fully address the task. That sounds obvious, but a lot of people don't do that. And then for your topic development, it needs to be well developed. Your details need to be appropriate and effective. Your information needs to be accurate based on research from education, what you learned when you took the bilingual supplemental and the core subjects, things like that, right? Your knowledge of teaching. So that's about half of it is, are you fully addressing the task and using correct information? But the other part that they grade you on is your language use. You have to show a high or mid-high degree of control of a variety of structures. That means you're varying your language tense. So you're not using only the present tense, you're also using past tenses, future tenses, things like that. You need to vary your vocabulary and use it with precision. So we don't want to use everyday informal Spanish. We want to use a high level of Spanish. High level of fluency, very good pronunciation, well-organized, generally coherent response. Register is appropriate. This means the level of formality. So if it's an informal situation, you would use informal Spanish. And if it's formal, you would use formal. So for example, we're not talking about the conversation right now, but just for a tip, on the conversation, if you're talking to a child or a best friend or a family member, you would use tú, right? But if you're talking to a colleague, a principal, a parent, you're going to use usted. That's also the linguistic register, right? So now that we've talked about how to get a perfect score, let's practice one of these. So let me pick one because I have a lot of them. Okay, I think I did this one last time in tutoring, so I'm going to do it today again because that way tonight when I do my next tutoring, I'll do a different one. So we're going to do, this is the scenario. Imagínese que en una entrevista la directora le hace las siguientes preguntas. So now what I'm going to do is set a timer. And we're going to set a timer for 1 minute. And I'm going to read the question because that's how they do it. They read you the question. And then you have 1 minute to take notes. You should know that at the test, you will have erasable sheets, kind of like a little booklet that's a dry erase board to take notes on, right? So we did the scenario. Now I'm going to read the question. ¿Tiene experiencia con niños que tienen necesidades especiales? 1 minute. All right. So now I'm going to read it one more time. And then hopefully somebody will be willing to present for 1 minute about this question. So that being said, I have to say everybody is very friendly. Teachers are some of the nicest people in the whole world. And I've never once had anybody be critical or laugh or anything about anybody's response, even if they mess up or don't do so well. So does anybody feel comfortable practicing? It's only 1 minute of talking. No? Okay. Well, I will do it and you can hear a 1 minute response. Now remember, it said a high to mid-high degree of control of a variety of structures. And it said, let me read the exact language. Here we go. I want to show you. It doesn't have to be perfect, and that might make you more comfortable in presenting too. The rubric must be further down. It says right here, we need to look at the 3, not the 2. A few grammatical errors occur with no evident patterns. So we don't have to be perfect to get a perfect score, right? So that being said, does anybody want to present or would y'all like me to give you an example? Okay, I'll do it. So I'm going to read the question again because we're pretending that this is a real test and then I'll talk for 1 minute. ¿Tienen experiencia con niños que tienen necesidades especiales? In 1 minute. Buenas tardes. Sí, tengo mucha experiencia con los niños que tienen necesidades especiales. Para empezar, por varios años trabajé como una maestra sustituta en todos los niveles, todos los grados. Y acepté varias posiciones donde trabajaba con los niños con necesidades especiales en un salón de clase de educación especial. Tuve que implementar sus modificaciones y acomodaciones y ayudarles. Además de mi experiencia como maestra sustituta, también enseñé en la escuela secundaria como una maestra de español como segundo idioma, como de una maestra de lenguajes del mundo. Y allí tenía muchos estudiantes en la educación especial que tenían, en inglés se llaman IEPs, como sus programas individuales. Y también enseñaba a muchos estudiantes en el programa 504 y tuve que implementar sus acomodaciones y sus modificaciones. So see how I varied my language structure, right? I didn't use only present tense. I used subjunctive when I needed to. I stayed on topic. I fully addressed the topic. I spoke for the whole minute, right? So even though I might have made an isolated mistake, especially because Spanish is my second language and my pronunciation is not native, it doesn't have to be native. It just has to be what they call good pronunciation. That would still earn a high score because I did my topic development and I used proper language. Anybody have any questions or comments or anything? No?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
For example, when you said IEP, would
Yeah.
it be appropriate to do that?
Anytime I see something in English, I try to say it in Spanish. So that's why I said programa individual,
Okay.
because we don't want to, that they count off when you use anglicismos or English words. You don't want to do that. So I said IEP, but then I said it in Spanish too. So that's what you want to do. Like somebody turned in a writing topic the other day and her Spanish was like almost perfect, but she said that los estudiantes van a hacer research. And I said, no, you don't do that. You're going to say investigaciones. You don't say research, even though we might do it when we're speaking. We throw in English words all the time. You don't do that on the test. You have to find a way to explain it if you can't think of the exact word, right? So if you found this helpful and it's kind of normal the first time people come to tutoring to not want to practice live, but usually by the second time they do it. So in my Tuesday night group where we meet at 7:30 p.m., so I'll be doing it here in a little bit. They do practice live and they show a lot of progress because we do it for a whole hour. So usually, they're kind of shy at first and then they get more comfortable. So if you happen to enroll, you can start tonight because the link is at the top of the course, right? And you can pay by the week. So you can just try it out for 1 week as a low risk way and see if you like it and continue. or you can pay by the month and save money. Um, but yeah, but hopefully you'll join me and check out my Facebook page too, because sometimes I put free stuff on there. And then I usually do this free tutoring, usually every 2 weeks or so, but I am going to do it again next week. Any other questions or comments? No? Well, I hope y'all have a great night, and I will hope to see you guys next time. Thank you.